Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, Epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Xander Sprague, and today I am so honored to be joined by Flo Hornig. Flo, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hello, and first of all, thanks for having me on the show. As you might be able to tell by my accent, I am not American. I am German, and I think it is the first podcast I record in 15 years that I'm also in Germany, because normally I'm traveling. I have been traveling with my camper back then. I did solo tours in Sahara. I moved to Africa. I built a lodge in Zanzibar. I had a safari company on Kilimanjaro. And throughout all of that time, I am coaching, mostly online based. And after having spent quite a time in the Swiss mountains, I'm now living on my sailing boat for the last couple of years. And today I'm on my girlfriend's boat. So that's why I'm not in France and not in Italy, but in northern Germany, and I'm really looking forward to be back in the south, because I'm planning to leave this week Germany, and then next week France, sailing west towards Spain, and then Morocco, and then the Canary Islands for the winter.
Wow, that is so incredible. In fact, I might even say epic. And clearly, you've been on quite a few epic adventures, and I want to talk about that. There's some
Yeah.
things that you and I actually probably share in common, places that we may have been together, which is really exciting. So,
Mhm.
first thing I want to talk to you. You said you solo trekked across part of the Sahara Desert.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, I too have been to the Sahara Desert. It was many, many years ago when I was probably about 13 years old. I was
Mhm.
in Morocco and we went down to right on the edge of the Sahara. We were actually camping out in the Sahara outside of Tinfu and stuff. And so, where did you start in the Sahara? Where did you go?
Well, I've been to a couple of different places in the Moroccan
Mhm.
desert. So if well, for anybody who's not so familiar with Africa, so Africa is a continent,
It is.
and
It's a
so
great
it's
continent.
yeah, it's looking like this. I have a very old coin here with the continent, the shape of the continent, cut into it. And if you look at a map, it's the top left corner, the Mediterranean going into the Atlantic Ocean. That is basically Morocco. And Morocco is a country with a super old and rich culture, because it has been part of the Roman Empire, and then
Oh yeah.
I mean, the most different emperors who had their personal kingdoms there. And there has been a time in between, roughly between 2005 and 2015, that I was traveling back and forth to Morocco quite a couple of times. And I wanted to see the king's cities and some of the culture, but mainly I was driven through or over the mountains, and I checked the desert at a couple of different places. And then at some time, 2012, I had the idea to do a kind of a solo tour. I wanted to go on an adventure. I was really bored by my office job. 2012, I was 31 years, and from 21 to 31, I thought I have to become rich and famous and work in an office and basically go to bed in my suit and the tie on and look very important and board on a plane a couple of times a week to travel to some very important business meetings. And one day I'll be rich and famous. One day people will say, "Hey, you made it." And then
Yeah.
I'm allowed to just be crazy and travel the world. And there was a epiphany hit me, and I realized, do I really want to be old before I live my dreams? Do I really need to get permissions by other people?
Sure.
Or can I just go for it now? And I wanted to try it out, and then I figured out I'm super afraid on going on an own adventure. Then one summer I was just pinning down things that I really, really want to do, from like going through the Great Lakes in America with the canoe, going by horse through the Rocky Mountains,
Yeah.
just stuff like that.
Sure.
One sailing around the world in a sailboat, and there was one thing that hit me, that was to like do a solo tour in the desert. And I
Yep.
found out that there's a race, which is called Marathon du Sable, and they do that in the southern part of Morocco, in a place called Mamit.
Yep.
Um, it's called the Plain of the Gazelles, and I thought, okay, if they do a marathon, it was a 7 stage marathon there, and they looked roughly for the route that they took the previous years. And they had just moved it to a different place in Morocco called Merzouga. And I thought, okay, they did it there before, so why not just do that on my own? And I had never been to that specific place in Morocco. And then I just trained for that, and I got my backpack on, and I traveled to Agadir, boarded uh, an overland bus, and it took me about 2 days to arrive there. And then I asked the people which direction is the next town, and they all called me a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And then I left. There is a river which had a lot of water about 4 weeks ago. But normally it's dried up, and it's called the River Dra.
Uh-huh.
And at a very long stretch, it is more or less the border between Morocco and Algeria to the south.
Yeah.
And
I
then
know
it
exactly. I was close to where you were, because yes, I was
Mhm.
close to the Algerian border, and there was some border disputes when I was there. So we were sort
Oh,
of
they have always border
supposed, yeah, we
disputes.
were supposed to go someplace, and then they're like, we're all like loaded up. There were a bunch of like again, school age children and adults, and we're supposed to go down, and they're like, we get about halfway down there, and they stop us and go, no, we
Hmm.
can't allow you to go there. There's this border dispute with Algeria. Um,
Yeah.
and we don't want a bunch of American, you know, basically American young adults and adults getting messed up with that. So
Hmm.
they turned us around. We went back to where we were. So yeah, no,
Yeah, so you
absolutely.
have
So I know I don't know exactly, but I yes, I was in that same sort
Mhm.
of area of the Sahara. So I get
Yeah,
it.
and if you want to go there, you can travel there either from a coastal town called Agadir,
Yeah.
or you can go there from one of the old capitals called Marrakesh. And from Marrakesh, you have to go over the high Atlas mountain,
Yes.
and then you are coming to a place called Ouarzazate, and like Ben Hur and
Yep. I was
Gali.
in was that. Mm.
Yeah, they are all, so a lot of these big American movies that are playing in the desert or in ancient Rome,
Yeah.
they're actually filmed in Ouarzazate. And then you're passing through Ouarzazate, and then you're going through the anti-Atlas, where there's no tree anymore. It's just rocks, 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 and everything is red. And then you come to a desert city, basically. It is a couple of 10,000 people live there. It's called Zagora,
Yep.
and
I was in Zagora too. Yeah.
Yeah, and shortly behind the Zagora, the River Dra is disappearing in the ground.
Yeah.
And then in Mamit is the last settlement, the last date plantation, and that's where I left the taxi.
Yeah.
And then I started to walk from there, and there's an old dried up lake, which is now just covered in salt. And I wanted to hike for about 10 days. And about 7 days later, I got really like bloody feet, and I was completely stressed out. And some people picked me up, and then I drove through Western Sahara with them to the place where the River Dra is going into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
There's like a very famous stretch. It's called Plage Blanche.
Okay.
So we have these huge, huge, huge white sand beaches, and like nothing there. Just the military outpost every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So things about the Sahara that were that I remember. First of all, um, and I wanted to ask you this, which is, um, I have a bag that I still have. I had it, now for 40 plus years. There is still sand in there, even though I vacuumed it, cleaned it, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I found amazing was the sand in the Sahara is so soft. Like I mean, it's so fine. It's honestly,
Mhm.
it's like silky.
Yeah,
It comes
compared to
to
compared to which other
like a
sand?
beach or something.
Yeah, you know what the difference is.
What?
Um, so on the one hand, the beach sand very often is stemming from a different source. So very often it's either shells or it is
Coral or
yeah, ground up. So, for example, if you want to construct something, very often you need beach sand. You can't use the Sahara sand because the cement won't work because
absolutely.
one is the like the chemical composition, and the other one is that because it has traveled for millions of years with the wind, it is
Yeah.
completely round. So the Sahara sand is not stacking. So when you try to build something out of Sahara sand, it's always compiling because the sand is so round. So one
Yeah.
is it travels by wind. So only the very, very light sand even arrives there and is building the big dunes, and then it's completely round. And that is why if you try to climb a dune in the desert, it's taking you forever because you always sink in there. And that's what gives the soft feeling. So the sand isn't soft. It's as hard as other sand, but because it's so round, it doesn't attach to each other, but it's just giving
Yeah.
way when you step on it.
Absolutely. The two other things. One will I'll stay in the desert for a second, and then I'm going to go to the
Hmm.
Atlas Mountain experience for a second. But the other thing was, and again, I was young, so I'll say I knew, but I didn't know, is how quickly it goes from like when it's daylight and the sun is up, it goes from being hot, and people tell you this, but until you experience it, like it can go from like 90 degrees Fahrenheit to like 60 in a
Hmm.
matter of like 20 minutes. Because when the sun goes down, all of a sudden, all the heat is gone, and all of a sudden, you're in shorts and t-shirt, and all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, it's freezing. You know, did you experience that too? Like where all of a sudden you're like,
Mo Yeah, actually, most of the times that I was there, I did not experience that.
okay,
Because I was there in the late spring, almost in the summer. Um, and so it was super hot in the day and still warm,
okay,
hottish in the night. And for some reason, It was some of the time where like some of the hottest time anyway. And if you have clouds or a sandstorm, then the heat can't
Yeah,
like
the
evaporate.
heat can't evaporate,
Yeah,
right?
you need the crystal clear nights with like cold air coming in from somewhere. And then
Yeah,
in the winter time, I've been there twice in the winter time, but I wasn't traveling there by foot. But I experienced it that as soon as the sun is gone, because there's no vegetation, no buildings, nothing that is like keeping it, and the sand very often is not totally warm. Sand is a very good isolator. So if you dig a meter,
yeah,
then the sand is getting colder. So
yeah.
there's not this like rock formation which keeps heating you from
Absolutely. The
the ground.
radiational heat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
just like the
absolutely.
super hot sand about maybe an inch or so,
Yeah,
and that cools out very quickly, and then it's getting cold.
it is. Now, my experience of going, we started off in Marrakesh and we did a
Hmm.
bus through the Atlas Mountains. And what I remember is, and I don't believe that this has changed, but again, it was many, many, many years ago, was I was on a road that was big enough for maybe one small compact car. I'm in a
Hmm.
bus, and there are these enormous like dump trucks, like supersized dump trucks going by, and we're on the outside. We're so close to the edge. I can't even see the edge of the road. I'm just looking down these long,
Hmm.
and there's cars upside down. You see the tires because it had driven off the. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so happy I wasn't driving. But I'm like, I don't know how we were getting by because I'm like, there's barely enough room for us. If there was, I remember one time we were up there and we came around the corner and there was this older gentleman with a burro, a donkey,
Hmm.
and there's like it's us or the man and the donkey. Now we didn't hit him, but I don't know how we got by him because we were so close to him, and
Hmm.
there was nothing. Like it dropped off like 200 meters down. I'm like, this poor guy. What are we doing? But
Hmm.
when you went through the Atlas Mountains, did you have kind of that experience of like, oh my gosh, I'm on a road that's not big enough for us and another person, never mind a car or truck.
Yes, yes, but it's not exclusive to the Atlas Mountains.
Yeah.
I experienced that all over Africa. Tanzania has some really nice mountains as well, and um, and I was traveling in Ethiopia as
Yeah.
well. In Ethiopia, you have these mountains that are very often between 3 and 4,000 meters in altitude.
Yeah.
Um, and it just doesn't change. It is
Yeah.
somehow it's an African thing, and I found it in Tanzania, the way they drive in Tanzania, because very often there they have these big cars, because they need to have the off roads, and
Yeah.
then in in I wanted to say in Marrakesh, in all over Morocco, you have more tarmac roads, and the
Yeah.
road system is, if you come from Europe to Morocco, it is a big difference. But if you go from Morocco to East Africa, the difference is the same or even bigger.
Yeah. Now, and I've been to, aside from being to Morocco, I've been to Southern Africa, South Africa, Botswana,
Mhm.
uh, uh, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and
Mhm.
stuff, which fabulous. And yes, you're right. Some of the roads are okay, and others are um
Adventurous, let's call it
yes,
that.
yes, adventurous. Yes, that's
Uh-huh.
a good way to put it, Flo. Good way to. And look, I do. I love the African continent. I haven't been to East Africa yet, but that's one of my big things in my epic stuff is not yet. And certainly um, Tanzania and Kenya, that's on my not yet. I'm going to get there. I just haven't gotten there yet. So, and I think it's really interesting. You said that you ran a like a safari company around Kilimanjaro. Can you talk
Mhm.
a little about that and what you did?
Um, yeah. Well, basically, I was organizing tours.
Okay.
Quite simple. I had a house there that we were renting out as a lodge
Mhm.
style, more family lodge. So because I do not, if I travel to a faraway country
Mhm.
with a different background, a different culture, a
Mhm.
different climate, then I don't want to eat the same food and have the same style of housing, the same style of kitchen. I want to experience the exotic, what is different.
Sure.
And still, I do not want to sleep on the floor with insects. So
I,
it happened to me in,
I,
in the in the Sahara Desert that I
yeah.
woke up one night because there was an ant probably and it crawled into my nose and was really deep in the nose, so I couldn't reach it anymore, but I
Yeah.
could feel it was moving around. That was really horrible. I don't want to have that in my bed. So when I'm traveling, I'm looking for an authentic way of experience the culture and the land and the people
Definitely.
without being ripped off and without being yeah, comforted like an alien. And in
Yeah.
Tanzania, I don't find that very. So the tourism industry is a lot different in Kenya and a lot more professionalized. They opened up to Western countries much earlier, and you can find a lot of decent hotels that try to keep like this typical safari look and
Yeah.
the safari feeling, and they give you a vibe of Africa when you're there. And in Tanzania, a lot of those places are still not developed at all, or they have these huge menus. And whatever you point on, they don't have it there. In the end, it's chicken, and the
Yeah.
chicken doesn't taste well. So I'm looking for that. Give me maybe just an option: dinner, yes or no, or meat or no meat, and then cook something which is as local as possible,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
something that the people can really cook very well, which is really nice, and that you can come back and say, I tasted a piece of Africa.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was my idea. That was my idea. I built by accident a hotel in Zanzibar, and there
By
we had
accident,
exact.
like all of a sudden you're, oh, surprise! I
Yeah,
built a
yeah, yeah,
hotel. Oh my gosh.
yeah. I was there on vacation. And I wanted to prove myself that the year after I went to the Moroccan desert. And I traveled Tanzania for about 3 or 4 weeks, something like this, on
Mhm.
vacation. And then I wanted to prove myself that I can do my home office style working from anywhere in the world. And so
Yeah.
I stayed in Stone Town in Zanzibar for another month. And I needed to get out of the city every once in a while. Then I met a person who was renting out very locally a room very close to the beach in southern Zanzibar. And we became friends. And then he asked me if I can help him to build a second room and keep it with this interesting touch. And then we did
Mhm.
that. And well, then every time I was gone, he started a new project, and in the end, we turned around this whole property, and then we had this lodge about 150 meters from the beach in southern Zanzibar,
Nice.
and so be, I stepped into hospitality by accident. I didn't plan that, but once it was going that way, I decided to move there for a year and did the management over there, and I've tried to find exactly that style. And that before I could tell you that I like something or that I don't like something, but I couldn't express what it was.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden I had to ask myself, what is it that I want?
Yeah.
And this, what I told you about the food, for example, we
Yeah.
did not offer a menu anymore. So there was dinner, yes or no. And we always had fresh fish. So the best fish, fresh caught,
Yeah.
but we accompanied this with a lot of veggies. And um, it was only dinner, yes or no. and then you could choose yourself whether you want to have the fish or whether you only want to have the veggies. And we didn't serve it on the plate. We served it in big bowls in the middle
Yeah.
of the table, and we just had one long table, and
Yeah.
all the guests had to sit together at one table, and they had to serve themselves.
Yeah.
And I added my staff members also to that table. They didn't like this because they didn't want to sit with the white people on the same table. I
Right.
said, no, no, you have to mix with them, talk to them, because this is what makes this place special, that they are not separated from you.
Yes. Definitely.
And I asked the people to only put as much on the table as, oh, put as much on their plate as they want to eat,
Definitely.
so that we could use the rest. And that gave all my visitors a very familiar and very sustainable feeling. And after I left Zanzibar, I had a big corruption issue going on there, and we can have an own episode about this.
Yeah.
In the end, I got arrested by the police, and everybody I knew and worked together with, including my partners, said they don't know who I am.
Oh no.
And they accused me of breaking into the lodge. And although they knew that I was paying them, they said like they didn't know who I am.
Oh
And so the
no.
police wanted to
Oh.
lock me up, but then I had my papers, and then they said, yeah, the papers are fake. I'm just trying to steal them their land. And that's how I left. I left Zanzibar, and I wanted to keep working in that field because the experience that I had with my visitors was so rewarding, because it was not this quick and dirty try to get as much money out of them as you want and then they move on, but
Definitely.
to take them on little adventures, may it be in the mangroves, may it be on these spice farms, and not this quick try to get as much money, but explanation, tasting, sitting together, spending some time. So they really liked to pay us for that. And they went home and they told their friends, and we had a lot of repeat
Definitely.
customers.
Yeah.
And I
I've
wanted to
got.
have that on the mainland.
Yeah, and I've got a really good friend of mine who's a safari guide, and he sets up. Yes, where he can give you whatever you want. You can go everything from doing like safari camp, mobile safari camp, where
Hmm.
you're like, all right, we're just out in the middle of the Veld, and oh, we've been here for a day now. We're gonna go off game watching, and then we're gonna end up over here. Uh, Comfortable, but certainly very authentic in terms of the food that you're eating. I totally have experienced and do enjoy that sort of. Don't give me an option. Say what you're having is fish, or you're having some, impala stew
Hmm.
or something. And I think that is part of the fun, and that is how you really learn and experience the local culture, the local uh, flavor, right? And
Yeah.
you may discover that you really like something that you weren't sure that you were going to ever like
And
you to
even,
ever try.
yeah, and even if you do not like it, I prefer to have been in a country and say, I like that, and I absolutely did not like that
Sure,
because
but
I
at least you
tried it.
tried it.
Yes, because I tried it, not because I read about it in a book or because I don't eat it because it's African, but because I have been there. It's the same when we do the I also, after I visited the desert, I organized Sahara tours for 10 years with the friends that I met there. And so we traveled for like a week or 10
Right.
days. And I combined that with coaching. So I did my 1 week coaching seminar while walking through the Sahara Desert. And we mixed this up with the guides who were all sitting around the same fire. People had to help setting up the camp, and that
Sure.
created some kind of community. And the food there was, I mean, they were basically cooking it. We were baking bread in the sand. So you make a super hot fire on the
Yeah.
sand, and then you shovel away some of the fire so that only the coal and the ashes are there. Then you put the bread there, and then you cover it with sand and the fire. And in the end, you just like brush off the sand, and you
Yeah,
can eat it right from the fire. And like stuff like this here, you would say this is not hygienic, and there people loved it because it was super authentic. And this is what I really love about, yeah, these adventures, is to share them with others, to create
absolutely.
these experiences.
Yeah, and it because there is not enough time. But I'm just going. Let me just say, I say there's not enough time because if I'm like, oh, what are your favorite epic destinations? But because you have clearly traveled many places and had many adventures, that probably would be another. We'd be here for another 2 hours, as you were wonderfully
Yeah,
described.
I can tell you very clearly that I do not have that. Um, um, I so I love it. I love to have scenic landscape, um, like interesting weather. I don't like if it's just gray and a little bit of rain. I mean, if
Yeah,
either super cold and snow and like a snowstorm,
yeah,
or super sunny, super hot, super humid. I mean, even to have a tropical rain burst is interesting. Um, I think there is almost no place that doesn't have its beauty, and very often the less it is touched by humans, the more fascinating and beautiful it is.
definitely. Absolutely, Flo. Absolutely. I agree. I've been very fortunate to travel to many places in the world, and some of the ones that I remember best are the ones where there wasn't a lot of meddling, right?
Mm.
From us humans,
Or yeah.
you know, so that's great. Um, Question I love to ask all of my guests. I referenced it before this, not yet. So, what are one or two of your not yets? Those things that you're like, I want to do this, but it hasn't happened yet. What either places that you'd like to travel to or experiences you'd like to have that are kind of on your bucket list?
Well, like most of it. The thing that came to my mind first was the Amazon.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be fascinating. That sounds like that might be another couple years for you to explore that.
Yeah, and I so originally I wanted to cross the Atlantic Ocean with my own boat this
Yeah.
winter. I'm not going to do that yet, so that is something that is on my bucket list as well. And
Okay.
I have the idea that I travel to some places with my boat so that I don't have to be there on vacation, but that I can stay there longer, stay up in the
Right.
marina and explore the country with and like having my home with me and traveling there slow and by wind. I think that's also super interesting that you're not boarding a plane, getting off the plane. I mean, if you travel slow by walking, riding a bike, riding a horse, going by the power of the wind, um, it gives you a feeling and understanding of distance, and you
Yep.
don't have jet lag.
That is true. That is true. And absolutely. And certainly sailing your boat to different locations is truly an epic adventure. And
Yeah.
as they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey there. And I sailed for many years. I haven't done too much sort of long distance cruising or whatever sailing. Um, but certainly a very challenging because all kinds of things come up that all of a sudden you have to figure out how to fix
Everything.
something that broke.
Yeah, all of the
and
time.
and as beautiful as the world is, Mother Nature can sometimes be an unforgiving friend.
Well, it never is your friend.
That is true.
So it is always an arrangement. And I mean, if and very often it's either I live or something else lives. So
Yeah,
it's always a competition. And if I'm not here, something else is there, be it the air, which is at that place that I just occupied, or if I'm leaving the water fills right up. So I mean, nature is always moving and changing, and so nature is not there to give me a good life or to protect me on anything.
no,
So it's
absolutely not.
being a part of a system, and that can lead to being thankful on the one hand, but always being conscious and careful on the other hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Flo, I want to thank you so much for sharing your adventures and your
You're
knowledge.
welcome.
This has just
You're
been
welcome.
great. If people are interested to learn more about you, perhaps follow some of your adventures, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest is to just visit my travel website. It's flojo.com, FLOHJOE.com.
Okay.
Maybe you can link it. And there are links to my videos. There's a link to my coaching.
Sure.
So it's a good starting place.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This
Yeah,
has
you're
really
welcome.
been
Thank you.
so much fun. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic adventure, go to epicbegins.com. And as always, remember, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.